Oh, mic check 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. It's Mike D checking in here. I just want to check in with the people and do like a brief synopsis on Irv Gotti and his life. I think that Irv Gotti is one of those figures in hip hop who's very instrumental in his time period in hip hop, late '90s. I would even say early to mid '90s as well, and early 2000s, and did we give him credit for? Um, Irv Gotti, as you guys may have heard, has passed away. Irv Gotti has passed away. We got the news yesterday. He suffered his second stroke, and prayers up to him, his family, the Murder Inc. family, all of those that are close to him. But what I wanted to do today was kind of give a little brief history about Irv Gotti and his influence on the game, outside of Murder Inc., Ja Rule, Ashanti, and things like that that people just may know. And for those who don't know, I'll kind of go over a little bit of that as well. But yeah, Irv started off as a DJ and was quickly working his way up through the music ranks, and working with guys like Mike Geronimo early. He actually put on Hype Williams. Hype Williams' first directed video was a Irv Gotti situation. Irv Gotti saw talent in Hype Williams, got him in the game, and the rest is history on that level. He was working with DMX early. DMX, and now some of DMX's early work, which is great work, Irv produced. And for the people who know, he did work on Reasonable Doubt with Can I Live. So him, DMX, Jay Z, those guys were intertwined early. Now, the point of Irv's history where it really gets extremely impactful, where a lot of people probably know Irv Gotti from and start really hearing his name, is once he became I think it was A&R at Def Jam Records. And this is during Def Jam's very pivotal moment where they start changing up their culture a little bit in the late 90s. Leo Cohen was over at Def Jam at that time. Kevin Liles was at Def Jam at that time, but he was very pivotal in getting DMX and Jay Z over to Def Jam. And DMX and Jay Z's acquisition of Def Jam was game changing for not just Def Jam, but for the game at that time. Now, I always on my show talk about, Jay being able to utilize soundtrack records, right? On the first album, on Reasonable Doubt, he had not Can I Get It? What was I'm talking about? On the first album, he had Ain't No Nigga featuring Foxy Brown, who was signed to Def Jam at that moment and at that time period. But that was on the Nutty Professor soundtrack. And from my understanding, and I think Jay Z spoke about this on the Murder Inc. documentary. He was saying that the person that gave him the idea about utilizing soundtrack songs and soundtrack budgets was Irv Gotti. He was like, "Yo, go holler at Kevin Liles." He talked to Kevin Liles, and they were able to make that happen. And having that record on the Nutty Professor soundtrack was huge for Jay Z in his career, and it also started that dialogue and that relationship between Rockefeller, Jay Z, and Def Jam, which turned into an acquisition, or not really an acquisition, but a partnership, a 50-50 venture. And when Def Jam needed a spark, Irv put it all out there. He said, "Listen, man, if you guys don't sign DMX, this is what the story is, and this is what Irv said." Many people corroborate this as well. With the Leo Cohen, it's like, "Listen, if you don't sign DMX, I'm quitting." And needless to say, Leo Cohen went out there, signed DMX. We got Dark as Hell. It's Dark and Hell is Hot. Irv Gotti was the executive producer of that record. The success of DMX and Jay Z led to Irv being able to have his own imprint, Murder Inc., over there at Def Jam, and and then Ja Rule comes along. Um, Ja Rule was able to find his footing in the game, and many people, I remember when Ja came out, man, we felt like Ja was like a DMX Jr., if you will. And I think on Vita Vetta Vici, when Ja Rule was kind of finding his lane, it kind of came across as that. Because, anytime a new artist is coming out, you get compared to somebody. DMX got compared to Tupac when he came out, just because of his approach and, not want to say his delivery, but his energy, right? Um, but after that, Ja Rule was able to find his lane in the 2000s and, became an incredible success, one of the highest selling artists of that era. We don't give Ja Rule enough credit for that. And that built the Murder Inc. empire even more. I want to backtrack a little bit too. I remember the talks of, there was an XXL cover with Jay-Z, DMX, and Ja Rule, and they were going to make a group, or they were going to do a group album as a collective, Murder Inc. It never transpired. They did a few songs together. Again, that was Irv Gotti, pulling those strings and that. And I do believe that the love for those three individuals had for Irv Gotti was the reason why we even got those records and even got that synergy, because that's the one thing that they had in common. They had a relationship with Irv Gotti, and Irv Gotti looked out for them as artists. He was very pivotal in getting Rockefeller and Jay-Z over to Def Jam. He was extremely pivotal in getting DMX to Def Jam, because DMX had record situations before that didn't work out. He was with Rough House, and not a lot of labels were willing to, take on DMX and his personal baggage. And, Irv put it all out there. It was like, look, y'all have to do this. And it paid off, and it paid off for Def Jam. It paid off for DMX and for us fans who were extremely inspired by DMX and his movement. We talk about it all the time. DMX changed the color of hip hop in 1998 when everything was really shiny and flashy on a mainstream level. And we do have Irv Gotti to thank for that. Now, back to the whole Murder Inc. thing. I wish we could have gotten that trio album. It'd be great if there are some unreleased nuggets from that can be released to some degree. But Irv Gotti was able to take the Murder Inc. imprint and Ja Rule at the helm with his hits, and running radio with Me and You and Always on Time. Like, Ja Rule had hits, Living It Up. Ja Rule was going. And, people who weren't there, I think that there's a lot of revisionist history when it comes to Ja Rule's career. And then Ashanti comes along. Success as well. Lloyd as well. They had their run-in. Murder Inc. had their run-in with with the federal government, and they were able to be exonerated in that situation, and kind of try to go on with their career. But at that point, the momentum for Murder Inc. as an imprint and the separation of Def Jam, it wasn't the same momentum. And Leor and Kevin Liles were no longer at Def Jam. I would imagine that had a lot to do with the momentum. And 50 Cent, of course, that's a big factor. I'm not going to not mention that. But saying all that to say, Irv Gotti and the work that he's done in hip hop and the impact that he's had in hip hop, it lasts forever in that era. And I think that a lot of people just identify him with the Murder Inc. movement, as they should, because that was his movement and he was a big face on that movement. But he was doing a lot of things in the background, even as a DJ, as an A&R, and just as a mover and shaker out here in hip hop, in one of hip hop's most pivotal periods. So when a person passes on, you think about their life and you just highlight the things that they did that changed the game. And Irv Gotti was a big part of changing the game in this game of hip hop in a very pivotal moment. And shout out to him and his life and his life's work, and his family and his friends and the people who are mourning his loss. Your impact that you had on hip hop and that you had on us, man, is always going to be felt. You did some things that will change the game forever, man. I think that, in my personal opinion, the Ja Rule movement with him and Murder Inc. was, phenomenal. They had a phenomenal run. But, what he did with DMX as an A&R, it's one of the greatest A&R findings in hip-hop history. This was a raw talent who was ready, but who needed a little bit of direction. And they dropped This Dark and Hell Is Hot, and that's an immediate game changer. And to sell 5 million records worldwide off of a gritty album like that, that is a huge accomplishment. DMX didn't do anything that was quote unquote commercial on that album. The Rough Riders anthem was very important, but again, it was a very raw song. It was a little lighter than the rest of the stuff that was on the album that was very dark, but you even have dark in the title. It's dark and hell is hot, and you were able to sell 5 million records off of that. Kudos to you guys, man. Incredible work. I always give Rick Rubin a lot of credit for signing Public Enemy, but I think that Irv Gotti putting it all out on the line and making sure that Def Jam signed somebody like DMX at the time that they did. I I give so much credit to that because he's a creator too, and we don't look at executives sometimes as creators and visionaries, but for Irv to have that level of foresight in DMX's career and putting it all out there for Jay, and always putting it out there for Jay to get Jay to that next level. Jay-Z and DMX in the late 90s, they changed hip hop, and they were the faces of hip hop in many aspects, and Irv Gotti had a lot to do with that. So rest in peace to Irv Gotti, and like I said, peace and blessings to his family and during this difficult time, and a moment of silence for him.